Part 21. Xuan Huaifeng was pushed back by drunken Bai Xuelan, so he injured his palm. Xuan Huaifeng returned to the room, and when he remembered what Bai Xuelan said, he felt uncomfortable. On the other hand, I thought, I shouldn't talk nonsense for Bai Xuelan's sake, and be so idle, but instead fall into Bai Xuelan's tricks. Whenever you encounter this kind of thing, if you don't get angry, you will win. Going to the bookcase, I found the book Gone with the Wind again, and read it silently through gritted teeth. Unexpectedly, after reading a few pages, I felt even more panicked, neither standing nor sitting. After biting his head to read a small chapter, he was feeling distracted. One of the hearers was very uninterested. The servant ran into the room and asked, "Adjutant Xuan, dinner is ready. Did you bring it to the commander's room? With you and the commander? Who said go to his room?" Xuan Huaifeng threw the book on the table violently. "Don't eat." The servant didn't know what he had said wrong, which made the always gentle adjutant Xuan so angry. The child was stunned and glanced at him from the side. Seeing his expression, Xuan Huaifeng knew that he was pissed off. Not to be discouraged. Now is not what it used to be, and I am also being ordered by others to be mercenaries, so why vent on innocent outsiders? It doesn't make sense at all. He sighed, his tone softened, and he said weakly, "I'm not hungry, you can eat by yourself." He raised his hand and waved it gently. The servant said, "Adjutant Xuan, if you don't have any appetite, you still have to eat rice. The housekeeper said you are Cantonese, and you love light. Otherwise, I will go to the kitchen and tell you to cook some small dishes for you, and then serve it with a bowl of white porridge for you. How do you feel?" He sighed, and said in a low voice, "If you don't eat, the chief will know, and we will suffer. You can be sympathetic to the little one. What to eat, give an order, and get it for you immediately. Just don't skip a bite, okay? What's the matter with the chief if I don't eat?" Xuan Huaifeng said angrily, "If you don't publicize such a trivial matter, he doesn't know about it, so it won't be a problem?" You hurried to report. "I heard that it has become a bounty. Anyone in the mansion can get money by passing on my actions." "Is there such a thing?" The servant laughed and said, "Look at what you said. We servants, it's not what the above says. What are we listening to? Besides, if there is something, even if you don't have money to reward, I still dare not hide it. I will tell you quietly." Before leaving, taking a step, he lowered his voice and said, "The guards who followed you out today were beaten to death by the commander-in-chief, and now they are all lying down and rubbing the medicine for golden sores." Xuan Huaifeng was startled. "Why beat them? Who? You know? I heard that the commander called the driver in and asked a few questions, but for some reason, he ordered the guards to be whipped." Xuan Huaifeng couldn't help feeling guilty. Needless to say, the driver must have told Bai Xuelan everything during the day. Bai Xuelan's jealousy of Qijun has always been undisguised. Knowing that he is with Qijun today, is there any reason not to be angry? Those guards must be because of him. And they have brought disaster to speak. In fact, although those guards were vicious towards others, they still respected him very much. Apart from being too clingy, there was nothing wrong with them. I didn't expect that I would accidentally make them suffer like this. While thinking about it, I hated Bai Xuelan for being too much, beating people at every turn, and tyranny like King Zhou. Xuan Huaifeng opened the drawer, and inside there were stacks of new banknotes, all of which Bai Xuelan usually stuffed him with, asking him to keep it as a reward. He took out all the banknotes, handed them to the servant, and said, "Excuse me. Please help me to go and see if the guards are seriously injured." With this money, if distributed to them, is considered as recuperation expenses. Today's matter is because of me, tired of them. Originally, I should have gone to see for myself, but I am a person who can easily get into trouble. The servant did not dare to take his money, and pushed it away with both hands, saying with a smile, "Adjutant Xuan, it's not necessary, it's not necessary. Although the chief is a bit strict, he treats us very well. He punishes severely and rewards us with many benefits. You don't know how many people are scrambling to be the chief's bodyguard." Xuan Huaifeng said, "Anyway, this money is his. Just treat it as a benefit from him." The servant still did not dare to take it and kept refusing. Finally, he had no choice but to tell the truth. "Even if I take it, no one dares to take it. If I take it, I might get whipped again, which is not worth it. Don't you think so?" Xuan Huaifeng was stunned. There was no choice but to put the money back in the drawer. The servant took the opportunity to go outside, brought the dinner prepared in the kitchen, and set it on the table. 4 dishes, 1 soup, and a bowl of oily white rice. The dishes were not big, but they were delicious. Xuan Huaifeng had no appetite at all. Just because he didn't want to embarrass the servant and give Bai Xuelan another excuse to beat someone to vent his anger. He scooped a bowl of soup and drank it without knowing the taste and considered it full. The servant was still persuading him. Xuan Huaifeng said, "Wait until late at night. I feel hungry and then order a midnight snack." After the servant cleaned up the dishes and left, Xuan Huaifeng hurriedly took a bath, went back to the room and lay on the bed, staring at the moon like a silver plate outside the window. It seems that Bai Xuelan will not come tonight. The moonlight covered everything with a light veil. Outside, under the roots of the rockery, wild insects cried sadly, although it was very low, but it was everywhere, as if someone was sobbing sadly in an invisible place. On such a rare night alone, and in such an atmosphere that easily makes people feel emotional, he should have missed Qijun. When Xuan Huaifeng thought of this person, his heart, which had just calmed down, became a mess. Is it really like Bai Xuelan said? Qijun holds the actor. Is there more than one? Did he really hug Bai Yunfei? That high-end watch, given to Bai Yunfei, is the meaning of love? Or prostitution? Did he put it on Bai Yunfei himself? This is really asking for trouble, and it has completely fallen for Bai Xuelan's plan. Xuan Huaifeng found that not thinking too much, hating Bai Xuelan wholeheartedly, and putting all the faults on Bai Xuelan's head, was better than thinking alone like this. If not, I won't miss Qijun tonight. Even if you want to miss, it is better to miss the mother in the sky, and the father who used to be brutal but actually spoiled him very much. Miss this word, how to pronounce it? He tried to recall, probably. Tumamanke. This was taught by Bai Xuelan. This person, if he is not the chief of customs, is a French teacher who can honestly teach and educate people. It is not bad. Xuan Huaifeng couldn't help but pursed his lips and smiled. The wind came through the window, with the sweet fragrance of flowers in the May night, gently brushing on the shoulders. He lay on his side, with one arm bent and his forehead resting on it. Slowly, he fell asleep. In the second half of the night, Xuan Huaifeng was sleeping soundly, but was suddenly awakened. Someone outside was banging on the door, panting and saying, "Adjutant Xuan. Adjutant Xuan. The chief is drunk, please go and persuade me." "What's the matter?" the servant said. "The chief has been drinking and won't listen to anyone. Adjutant Xuan, please go." "Drunk? I want to ignore it, and in the end, I can't bear this heart." Bai Xuelan was injured just now, and he couldn't ignore his duties, so he had to say, "I'll go take a look." He casually draped a long gown over his shoulders and hurried over with the servant. Outside Bai Xuelan's bedroom, there were several people standing at the door. The housekeeper, adjutant's son, and 2 doctors were all there, all staring at the door as if they were at a loss. Xuan Huaifeng asked adjutant's son, What's the matter? The chief is really drinking? Adjutant's son whispered. Not only did he drink, but he was also drunk. Now he is still holding the wine bottle inside and won't let go. Xuan Huaifeng was originally suspicious. It was Bai Xuelan's bitter tactic. Now that I look at it, I don't feel like it. I can't help but say, the chief is injured. Drinking is a big taboo. Why don't you care about it? What's the use of standing outside the door? Adjutant's son with a wry smile, he said. If you manage it, it's useless. The chief became angry and even drove the doctor out. Just now, a servant didn't dare to bring him any more wine, and he was so annoyed that the chief tied him up. I won't know tomorrow, then how to deal with it. In this mansion, the chief is the biggest, who would dare to mess with him? Adjutant Xuan, I can only trouble you to go out. The last sentence. Pressing his voice, pleaded. Xuan Huaifeng was annoyed and helpless. I thought to myself, since you knew that you were looking for me, you should have looked for it earlier. Why did you think of it now that it was so much trouble? Adjutant's son saw his face to some extent, and then said, the chief has issued a strict order not to disturb you. It is not because of this. I am afraid that I will hurt the chief's body, and no one will dare to wake you up. I am calling you here now. There are still a lot of things to do. Xuan Huaifeng stepped into the door in front of everyone's eyes. At first glance, he saw several glass bottles lying on the ground, and there were 2 unopened bottles on the table. He had seen the style of the bottles and the foreign characters on them, and knew that it was Russian vodka. Cannot help but be surprised. This is a very powerful spirit, and Bai Xuelan drinks it like water. Looking up, Bai Xuelan was half slanted on the bed. His face was purplish red as if he was drunk, his hands were hanging down by the side of the bed, his 5 fingers were holding a wine bottle tightly, his head was raised, his chest was tight, and he was gasping for breath. What the hell are you doing? Xuan Huaifeng asked angrily. Walking to the bed, the smell of alcohol came out. Xuan Huaifeng had the worst alcohol intake, and was almost drunk. He endured the soaring smell of alcohol, pushed Bai Xuelan, and leaned over to grab the wine bottle in his hand. Unexpectedly, Bai Xuelan clenched his grip tightly. So when he grabbed it, he didn't grab it. Bai Xuelan turned his head, with the usual sluggishness of drunkards, slowly glanced at him, and raised the bottle to his mouth again. Don't be fooling around? Xuan Huaifeng gave a low drink, rushed over, and snatched the bottle. Hit it on the ground. Boom! The glass slag smashed on the ground, and the smell of spirits rose from the ground, straight into the nostrils. Bai Xuelan slowly turned his neck back, looked at Xuan Huaifeng for a long time as if he didn't know him. And then there was some other emotion in his eyes. He burped and asked, What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Look at you, you woke up the whole mansion. You don't even realize it when you are injured. If you drink so much, do you want the wound to become inflamed and it will hurt for a few more days? I hurt myself. What about you? You! Xuan Huaifeng rushed out. If I hadn't been in front of your adjutant, I wouldn't have come to cry about you, a mouse. Bai Xuelan's anger was immediately stirred up. Suddenly stood up, and asked fiercely at him, Yes, you are my adjutant, and you are still my ancestor. You and I have clashed in our past lives, and I am destined to be bullied by you, right? Xuan Huaifeng, you are also measured a little, you have enough prestige. I don't dare to provoke you now. Hide in the room and drink some wine, and you have to come to make things difficult? You still let me Bai Xuelan live. Xuan Huaifeng's attitude almost fell up. That's what makes the wicked complain first. Bai Xuelan was completely drunk, roared for a round, and staggered to the other end of the table, reaching for the full bottle on it. Don't drink it. Xuan Huaifeng grabbed the bottle and threw it to the ground without a word. Boom! There was another glass scum, and the aroma of wine was overflowing. The two faced off like a cockfight. Bai Xuelan's eyes were red, and his chest rose and fell sharply as if he couldn't breathe. He stretched out his hand suddenly and pushed against Xuan Huaifeng's chest. He was drunk, his strength was stronger than usual. Xuan Huaifeng was pushed back by him, and his lower back slammed into the corner of the table, but he couldn't stop the fall. His foot slipped, and he fell to the ground. Xuan Huaifeng was caught off guard, didn't think of anything, stood up on the ground, and before he spoke, a pain suddenly came from his palm. When he lifted it up, he saw that both palms had been cut several times, and there was still a bit of broken glass embedded in the flesh. Blood was kept alive. Bai Xuelan was also startled when he saw the dazzling blood and stood with his eyes straight for a long time, as if he had sobered up a bit, moved and took a step forward. Xuan Huaifeng shouted cautiously, "Don't come here." Bai Xuelan stood still as if frightened. His breathing was already chaotic. He fixed his eyes on Xuan Huaifeng, and wanted to reach out to hold Xuan Huaifeng's wrist. Xuan Huaifeng was so busy that he shrank his hands and took a step back, staring at Bai Xuelan, not allowing Bai Xuelan to approach. "Let me see." Bai Xuelan just murmured 3 words, but Xuan Huaifeng stopped drinking and asked angrily, "What's so good about it? Who is the cat crying and the mouse now?" He sneered again. "I understand in my heart, you didn't pull me out and whip dozens of whips, you've already shown mercy." His hands hurt again. His waist hurts, and his head hurts even more, and he doesn't want to deal with Bai Xuelan anymore. This guy is a complete killer. Turning around, he left the ashamed Bai Xuelan behind him, and strode out of the room with his bloody hands in hand. Adjutant Sun and the others had already heard the ping-pong smashing things inside, and they heard Bai Xuelan and Xuan Huaifeng roaring. And when they saw Xuan Huaifeng bleeding out, they hurried around and said anxiously, "What's wrong?" "It's like this," Xuan Huaifeng said. "I've tried my best. If he still wants to drink, I can't do anything." Adjutant Sun said, "Why do you say such negative words now? It's all my fault. Something has happened. Hurry up and bandage it. Fortunately the doctor is ready." The 2 doctors immediately took Xuan Huaifeng to the wing room and opened the first aid kit to treat his wound. Alcohol disinfection is really painful. Xuan Huaifeng frowned, stretched out his hand to let the doctor toss on the wound, and pricked his ears to listen to the movement outside. After a while, he thought about it and said, "There seems to be no sound in the bedroom." The young doctor, who was an assistant, he smiled and said, "Adjutant Xuan, you have already cut a few holes in your hand. And you still remember what's going on with Chief Pai? It's rare to see a person as conscientious as you." Xuan Huaifeng fell silent for a while, looking at his face. The young doctor probably guessed that he had said something wrong, so he closed his mouth and sterilized the wound honestly. After it was done, Xuan Huaifeng went straight back to his room. He always had a hunch that something would happen to Bai Xuelan. After lying on the bed for a long time, he tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. Strangely, the hunch didn't work at all. From that moment until dawn, no one bothered him again, not even a single person passed by outside the window. The chirping became clearer. Xuan Huaifeng was so full of things that he couldn't let go. It seemed like sleep was not sleep. When it was bright outside the window, he felt even more tired than before going to bed. He was a little anxious for no reason, and he didn't want to lie on the bed like this. After hearing a few cock crows, he simply dragged his tired body to get up.